But I don't deem myself as a feminist because the language around feminism is all very entrenched, in my opinion, in like the white female perspective.
Grownish, smartish, British.
We are British, apparently.
100%. And I know I always knew that, and I feel like I was a bit of a few rare people which weren't as taken in by the whole craziness. I was worried initially, and then I was like, hang on, there's a whole group of people who are not reacting to this because it doesn't affect them because they're richer or more powerful or whatever. So why am I now?
So you have to think about the bigger pictures and the different conspiracies, but we ain't here to talk about
Yes, that is a different podcast.
Yes. So you are a PT for pre and postnatal women. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you're doing stuff specifically for women. You're a tech analyst.
Yeah, a very good technical analyst. Yeah, I'm just so impressed that you know like the journey.
Yeah. You're a wifey-ish.
Yeah, not with a ring, but
that's cool, man.
In you know, soul wise, yeah, I would say so.
Have you recently purchased a house?
We have flat, but yeah.
Girl, that's still a purchase.
I know. I only say that because I don't want the expectation to be people to come there pulling up to a big yard and they realise it's a 1-bed flat and they're like, rah. But
listen,
honestly,
you own your crib.
Trust me.
That's achievements and levels.
It's
so
proper
congratulations.
mad. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So you also do your own retreat.
We haven't done them in a minute, but yeah, I was doing my own retreat.
It's called Boss Your Body.
Yes. Oh my God, have you got me on Instagram?
I'm slightly stalking you. But you did it with one of the ladies that you actually did the first series of your podcast.
Exactly, Jaspreet, yeah.
I listen.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, very powerful because I feel like, obviously, looking at you, what you're doing with your podcast, Maya's Minutes, and also with the retreat and your PTing, it just seems to like gravitate around women.
Yeah, it all is.
Which is why it's important for us to talk about our topics today. I haven't really filled you in completely what we're going to talk about.
But I love that. It's like I'm in the car, finally in the passy, where I'm normally in your position. So I'm just sitting back right now.
Honestly, it's definitely refreshing to be on the other side of the mic. Yeah. Because whenever I'm in someone else's podcast, I'm like, yep, I'm here like cross
legs. Up. Exactly. Happy.
Whereas when it's on the other side, you're like, okay, so what now?
Yeah.
So I wanted to start I start each episode with your favourite quote. Can you please share that with us?
Yes. Very relevant to me at the moment is remember okay, start that again.
Pull up.
Remember when you used to wish for what you now have.
All right, can you elaborate to why this is your favourite quote?
Because I think it's very easy to lose perspective. I'm very big on having perspective, and like my boyfriend said, because I forced him to say like something he's noticed about me since living with me that he didn't know before, and he was not game, and then eventually he just gave in, and he said that he noticed that in stressful situations, no matter how mad it gets, I still remain quite calm, and I always seem to be in a good mood even no matter what's going on, and a lot goes on. So I said it's because from a very early time I realised that nothing's that deep. Do you know what I mean? Whilst everyone's still breathing, it's okay. Things are okay. Things can be reversible. Things aren't that bad. You need to remember things could be a lot worse. And when you have that perspective, that really helps. But it can't help but fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I haven't got this yet. I haven't got that. Oh my God, this could be better. This blah, blah, blah. And so now that, like, as you said, the massive goal for me was purchasing the property. Now that that's done, I finally have been taking a minute to just reflect and be like, wow, there's so much that I really, really wished for, and I'm living it now, and I'm so happy and I'm so proud and all the rest. But it's easy, no matter what situation you're in, to be like, it could always be better, it could always be this. And I think we get caught in that too much.
Not just that, I think I read this book, I think it's called The Conversation of Love, or Love Conversation, I can't remember, but it talks about how we have these goals we want to achieve, and we fall kind of like fixate on them, whether it's, you know, we want to buy a house, we want to find love, we want to get married, and every single time we achieve that, we almost forget that part and start fixating on another thing. Yeah. And it's almost like we become ungrateful to what we have, or we don't appreciate what we have. Not in the sense that you've neglected that thing, whether it's your house or your marriage or whatever, but the minute you get your marriage, you're like, well, I need to have a baby now. Yeah. I need to do this. And it's just like, but be grateful that you never thought you'd be married, or you never thought you'd be able to achieve this particular job role, and now you're here. So I think it is important to take heed of that and appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. I think it's harder though when you're from an immigrant background. There's a lot that it's not a negotiable, like you have to achieve. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that's robbed from us because
that's the thing.
we know, like my mum said to me the other day, she was like, I think it's because my partner and I bought our property together, and she was like, I'm so proud of both of you, blah, blah, blah. But for my boyfriend's called Kazim. For Kazim in particular, I think it's incredible because for him, it's not like he couldn't do it or anything, but his journey hasn't been as straightforward as mine. Not that it's been easy for either of us, but my mum said for me, for her, without a doubt, she knew I would definitely buy my own property. That was like, she said she knew that from when I was born, like that was going to happen.
That was your setup.
Literally. And it's not like she was going to help me with that or give me 50 and say, there you go. It was just that she knew that she was going to make sure that was just always the plan kind of thing. And so I feel like that's part of the reason why we can't often stop and take heed, and we're always like, what's the next thing, because it's inbuilt into us. Our parents are very much like, no matter what happens, you need to do more because you know, we had a journey of maybe getting to this country or sorting things out or what we faced, and you're now having to have a better life because we didn't have the best life kind of thing.
But it sounds like a beautiful narrative for how your mum sort of delivered it to you, because it's like growing up British as third culture kids, we do have a lot of pressures. We have a lot of pressures to be certain things and achieve certain things, and it's like by default, based on what they know and what they've inherited, it's a non-negotiable. Like you said, you must finish education, you must achieve this. But it sounded like your mum was kind of gearing you up to success as opposed to pressuring you into success.
No, totally.
And I think that's amazing because not many parents know how to navigate through life, and not many parents actually, none of us have a manual on how to be. And sometimes we don't know how to, like, we want something, but we don't know how to translate it in the correct manner. So kudos to your mum.
She's going to love that. She's
like, see, remember how amazing
Literally, she'll just play that every time.
So my quote is, everyone you meet is fighting their own battle, so be kind always.
Love that as well.
This resonates with me heavily at the moment because I realised, firstly, TikTok is a jungle. Like it's got its beauty, and I appreciate what it's doing as far as like pushing my podcast and, you know, connecting women with me. Like there's loads of women reaching out going, Hebz, I want to talk to you. And I've got into like coaching women and like being able to sort of have a safe space for them to speak and changing their perspective, like, or shifting perspective. But on the flip side, the amount of harsh comments that people are throwing towards each other, not just me, it's just like, do you realize everyone's going for it? Like, you're being really harsh on people, and not every single person's thick-skinned.
Trust
and
me.
not every single person can handle it and go, do you know what? It's just a troll. Let's let that, you know, I can let it slide. You're just a keyboard warrior. Like, it's as much as you can coach yourself and go, don't react to it. We're still human.
When I see homeless people, I have volunteered with to help homeless people as well before. But before then as well, I was always very switched on to the fact that nobody is above that. And I believe, and I say it all the time, my boyfriend's going to roll his eyes when he hears this because I say it weekly, but we are all 3 decisions or circumstances away on a good day. Do you know what I mean? And that is the truth for when a person sees or receives something negative, they're only like 3 more comments away potentially from losing their mind, potentially. Exactly. Yeah. So that is so true. Like I live by that as well. Like I always give a person the benefit of the doubt. So if someone snaps at me, I won't instantly react because I'm like, they're probably having a bad day because of X, Y, and Z. So let me just walk past that. But don't worry, because if you try me on a day, then it could get cracking. But yeah.
So literally, I've done 2 episodes, one of Louis the Hippie, and we spoke about male mental health and mental health in general. And we spoke about how, like, we look at people in the street and go, oh, well, they're crazy, they're homeless.
I remember listening to this.
You're actually just 1 or 2 stages away from losing your mind. And I've just literally launched an episode with Zarif, and we spoke about, you know, kill people with kindness. Because when people are being mean to you, more times they have issues. And more times they're very unhappy within themselves. But even though we have to try and understand them, sometimes it's hard to be able to have that skin to always like think about what they're going through, because sometimes it's just about you, and you're allowed to be selfish and go, well, why should I have to tolerate this nonsense?
And even in, like, I just read Charlemagne the God's autobiography. You read it?
No,
it's
I want
really
to.
good. It's called Black Privilege. It's really, really good.
Wicked.
And I actually bought it for my boyfriend, but he took too long to read it, so I've read it now. But he speaks about, you know, stuff we're all subconsciously aware of it, but I just don't think we practice it. But, you know, every action has a equal opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're doing it purely for selfish reasons, the more good you put out there and the kinder that you are, you're guaranteed to receive that back.
Yeah.
So even if you don't feel like it, you can fake it and you will still be like receiving the good of that. If you're not in the mood to hold the door for an old lady as she like struggles to get in, force yourself to do that, because later when you are about to get a fine or a parking ticket, the guy might just turn his head, because that could be the kind that's paid to you. Do you know what I mean?
It's
I
that
always think of it
life.
exactly like when I'm driving and like I let people cut in, because in a minute when I need to make that up, they might let me.
It's
do you know
time
what I
for
mean?
me to be the idiot.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So you speak quite heavily around women, and I think today the main thing I want to focus on is womanhood, feminism, our identity and how it's being shaped over the years, and what it stands for now based on what we had before.
Oh, it's like music, pure music to my ears.
and you know, a quick disclaimer, I'm sure there's certain things that I'll say, it might upset you, it might upset other people, and vice versa. You might say something, and the one thing I'll make very clear, I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm not here to put shame on anyone. I'm not here to make someone think that what they're doing isn't good enough, but we all have opinions, and I think it's important to understand where our thoughts come from and why we carry these opinions. So women, I'm not coming at you. I appreciate you, I support you, and I celebrate you. But first thing I want to ask you is, growing up, what did women look like in your household, in your culture, as far as roles and identity?
Strong. My mum was a very strong figure, and she always worked my whole life. She always encouraged me to, there wasn't like, she was brought up, my mum was born here, but she was brought up by like Punjabi immigrants who came to this country in maybe like the 50s, and she already had two older sisters who were 10 years older than her, who were born in Punjab and stuff, and then they came to England, but she was born here, like born here, so from the start. So her perspective is quite different to that of a typical Punjabi woman who's born here, potentially, and even maybe someone who wasn't born here, and not even, definitely someone who wasn't born here, and all the rest of it. So she raised me in a way where she never had expectation, like she's never encouraged or pushed the narrative of marriage or finding a man or anything that's like normative of like a gender role for a woman.
Okay.
Yeah, but she really pushed me to do things like put my best foot forward. Do you know what I mean? Study, focus, have something you're always good at. She always used to say, don't let good stop you from getting better, and to apply that to everything.
Not to be complacent.
Not to be complacent. And that's not just that's like with my personal life, with my relationship, with my studies, with my work, anything. Like she's always about shoot for the moon and don't ever doubt that you can't, kind of thing. Almost to the point where it's a bit unrealistic.
Yeah,
like, mate, you do still realise I'm a woman of colour. Like this is, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
the world's cruel out there.
Yeah, trust me. But so that was very good. However, underlying that, she still couldn't really escape the conditioning that she's had, and so in her home it wasn't it was still very like male pushed. Do you know what I mean? Her mum was definitely still like the brains and the so much behind things, but it was her dad that would take the lead, and he would give his wage packet to her mum to divvy up between them and everything. She would be the one to put that kind of thinking ahead, but he was still the man of the house. He was still the alpha. Everyone sort of had to like adhere to his kind of way of being. And so subconsciously, she replicated that in our home, which looking back, she didn't need to do, because my dad's not of Punjabi background. He's from Trinidad. So in his head, that isn't as necessary as well, kind of thing. He wouldn't have had those expectations, kind of thing. But looking back, and she's aware of it now as well, that's all she knew. So she was just trying to replicate that and play that out as well. So I think there's definitely things that I soaked up where I did have beliefs of a woman's role, but it didn't make sense as to why I thought that, because in my own home it wasn't really that, or it didn't need to be that. It's just that I could also see that there were some things that were just like, naturally my mum was the one who did all the cooking and cleaning. Yeah. Not that she had to, like, but you know,
she also enjoyed her role.
I don't even know, she defo didn't enjoy it. She made that very clear. But
so
she just felt, she felt like she would be a failure of a mum because of what her version of what a mum is. Do you know what I'm saying? Because her mum would have cooked, cleaned, everything. And her mum wouldn't have worked because that wouldn't have been available to her, but she would have done that as well if she could have, and she would have still cooked and cleaned and all the rest of it. So my mum had that in her head where she was like,
your mum sounds like me, but I'm trying to embrace it. So firstly, it sounds like your mum's breaking generational curses.
That's exactly what she would say.
But she's trying her best to, because naturally she's inherited things that she can't unlearn, and when you reach a certain point in life, as much as you're trying to unlearn it, it's kind of like part of your identity.
And it's funny,
there's no
because
shame behind that.
you see, you're obviously a lot younger than my mum, and so is Jazzpreet. No, you are.
You never know.
And so is Jazzpreet, but Jazzpreet and my mum, and a lot of other times I have these conversations with women from similar backgrounds, and they're like nearer my age, but in terms of like where they fall in the like first, second or third immigrant, they can resonate more with her story
100%.
Because it's that same journey.
I am the same. Like, as
peer.
far
You're
as-
her peer in that sense.
In that sense, yeah, because I'm the first one born here.
Yeah.
My mum came from a different country, and she had all these values and normalities, and they kind of forced it on. And I now am my mum, even though I try my best not to be my mum in certain areas. But I'm like, do you know what? I have to embrace certain elements of it, and I respect it.
Yeah.
So shout out to mums for actually like trying to break the cycle.
You're gonna have her here next.
Literally. Definitely, I'm down. I'm 100%. Do you know, it would be nice to speak to someone who can actually talk about it from that perspective.
Oh yeah, and she's a psychotherapist, so she goes so into it. Yeah.
So are we committing to this?
The thing is, I wanted to talk to her on my podcast
You really
at some
should.
point.
You really
but
should.
the thing is, it's an age thing where with people of a certain generation with so much respect and love, because we need you and we love you, it's hard to keep them on point of what you're talking about. There's just so many tangents, and when we're recording a podcast like this,
Chop it up, man.
yeah, but we need 5 hours then, because they're gonna
You need to ask her very like direct,
pertinent questions.
closed
I know.
So do you believe with the statement, yes or no?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, no need to elaborate, thank you. So would you say your household was very culture led rather than faith led?
Yeah, definitely. My mum's Sikh, and only in my later years, so I'm 26 now, so I'd say from when I was about 20, maybe like, yeah, about 20, I really saw her journey get way more into her faith, because she had a lot of shame around practicing, not even practicing, but like just being in the Gurdwara, which is the Punjab, the Sikh temple or place of worship, because she felt I had a lot of judgment from the other Punjabi women, because she was then married to a non-Sikh Punjabi man, now divorced, which is even more of a biggie. And you know, she hasn't taught us as much of she has taught me the culture, because I understand the culture, I just haven't experienced it firsthand. And I am even though I'm not very into Sikhism as a religion, I'm very spiritual, and I live my life in a very spiritual way, like all about good that you put out there, receiving that back, being kind to everybody. I treat my body very well. Like I don't drink, I eat, watch what, see fitness, like I'm into my health. So if you strip all of that back, that is a lot of the teachings that faith gives you.
It's all from similar foundations.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. And like I am very interested in my culture and both cultures, and I am very interested in learning the language and being better at that and being surrounded it. However, I'm also not blind to the ignorances on both sides, and that does hold me back. But I think this generation is very lucky that we can really pick and choose. Yeah, like I could go on the internet and learn Punjabi that way. I don't have to go to Punjabi school, which is what I did when I was younger. And that is where I would get a lot of ignorance and
not just that, but you're also able to learn everything for yourself firsthand, as opposed to what your mum taught you, because your mum might have inherited things from her mum and not really questioned it as such.
Totally.
And there is something beautiful about the fact that as parents get older, they kind of get more in touch with faith, and it's because they start understanding like more and more as we evolve as human beings our purpose.
Yeah, and it's also like an acceptance thing. Like I think like you say, there's a version of it which you take on, and if you don't fit that, you're like, this, I'm not doing it right, kind
you
of thing.
You might just reject it as
exactly.
well. Yeah.
But now that she's older, she's come to that acceptance and understanding of where she's at, and she's just like, actually, fine, I might, do non-Sikh traditional things, like she cuts her hair, or I think that's probably the only one. That's literally it. But she, she wears a ghada, she prays every day, she reads Gurbani, like she's extremely in it,
That's
but
feminine, yeah.
someone might look at her because she cuts her hair and be like, oh no. And I think for a long time that's what stopped her
listening
from
to people's opinions.
Exactly.
I get told all the time, oh, you're not really Muslim, how can you say you're Muslim when you're rocking this and doing this and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, bro, focus on your life.
I know, but that's what puts people off religion, because they look
yeah.
at that and they're just like, mate, why am I going to allow myself to get questioned about how
You
I live
shouldn't
my life?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I always have to emphasize, you cannot judge someone because firstly, you don't know your own, like, you got your own battles. Just because it's not outwardly and I can't see it doesn't mean you're going through something that you know you're not proud of.
Totally.
So we're all just going through a journey. Let's just run with it and know that we're all freestyling and struggling, which is why we're saying be kind to one another. It sounds like your mum kind of built you into like the concept being very strong. It's almost as like protect yourself, would you say? And to get you like make sure you're pretty much can stand on your own feet.
She always says, because she grew up, like I said, she grew up in a very typical Punjabi home, in that she was supposed to have an arranged marriage. When she did, she would have been, you know, quote unquote property of her husband's family, and she would have lived in that house with the mother-in-law and everything. They would have probably got a business gifted as part of the transaction. And she wouldn't have had to worry, work, anything. That would have been her life,
and been quite dependent on,
extremely dependent. So she raised me to be so not like that, because when she went to married my dad, she did it from the perspective of, I'm not going to have an arranged marriage, so this man's going to, you know, appreciate and push me and let me be who I wanted to be with like her work and everything. But actually it turned out that my dad had very primitive views as well. So that actually she recreated what she didn't want, kind of thing.
Interesting.
So she still struggled because she didn't have those learnings of like how to have a bank account or how to do these things. And so in the divorce, it was really hard for her. And so she's raised me in a way where that could never, not going to be me.
How old were you when they got divorced?
I mean, the divorce, it was a very strung out process. But the first separation started from when I was about 16, I would say.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I'm 26 now. So it's been like a 10-year span, and it still isn't where you'd want it to be. Like, they're not amicable or anything like that. So
it's a shame, but it gets like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard because like there's always one person that's very emotionally led, and it's just part of healing and growth. And sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't, and you just know how to navigate around it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's just trusting the process.
Yeah.
So moving on swiftly, feminism.
Yeah.
What are your views on feminism?
I don't identify myself as a feminist because, even though that sounds silly, because if you look at everything she's just listed about what I do, like, it's so
I'm strong, independent, I don't need
you. But I don't deem myself as a feminist because the language around feminism is all very entrenched, in my opinion, in like the white female perspective, and I don't identify with that. So for me, when people say feminist, they're talking about like a big hate of men, first of all, and the belief that like we should live separately from men, and that's the only way for us to survive and get to the point where women need to be like, because we've been oppressed for so long. And for me, like, men are a very necessary part of my life. Like
100%.
My partner is, do you know what I mean, my world. Like I couldn't really live without him. I've got male family members. Like I do think that yes, there's a lot of things that we need to do to help the progression of women, and a lot of that comes from teaching men, but to segregate away from men forever is not the answer. And
also to try and become a man, or trying to do what men do,
definitely,
is, to me, is a bit like confusing. I don't think, like, to me it just doesn't make sense. Like, in a sense of feminism, I agree with the fact that, you know, we want to be able to just do the basics, like to vote. That's
have our own
important.
bank accounts.
Yeah, to be able to, you know, if I'm working as hard as you in the same job, just because I'm a woman, I shouldn't get less, because you know, some women have to be the main provider, and it is what it is. But for me, there's something about when I think of feminism and what I'd like feminism to be in my world, it's about fighting for the basic human rights.
That is exactly what I say for myself as well. And I said this on my podcast too. And it's like, from a white woman's perspective, you're fighting for equal pay. I'm fighting to
ain't there, girl.
I'm fighting to get in the door. Do you know what I mean? I might not even be
yeah.
considered for the job because of my name, potentially.
Yeah.
Or I've got family members or, you know, people from my backgrounds where they might be in forced marriages, or women aren't allowed to study. Like, that is what I'm at.
Well, that's it. So when I was thinking about it, I wrote a few things down. So I focused around forced marriages, FGM.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't talk about that. Taboos and shame around divorce. Then there's cultural pressures of marriage, and conception.
Yep.
The pressures on a woman
Totally.
to conceive, not knowing the complications and the implications behind it. And then there's things around the world that are happening to this day. So Iran, women just trying to fight for the basic rights as a woman, which is, again, disclaimer, nothing around faith. This is a cultural state issue. And control. Then you have Afghanistan, where they were just told that women cannot have higher education anymore. And we're constantly dealing with racism, hate, and it's just like, these are the things that we just want to overcome. And I get it, like when workplaces are fighting so hard to even just get, like, when you have the ethnic minorities at workplaces, the BAME community, and to just have, like, for example, anonymous applications, so that you don't see someone's name and go like the unconscious biasness, like, why? And it's frustrating that we're having to teach people these things. But at the same time, it is what it is. So for me, feminism for me is just so I can be able to walk these streets and just be okay, and not worry about something being stripped away from me or something being enforced on me. And it's just like the narrative that you said is what feminism is today. I can't relate to it, and I can't connect to it.
Totally. And I think that it's very different as well, because there are certain things, if you choose to be with a man of colour, that is going to be different to a white male experience and being with a white man. And so I remember when, or not even this, I don't really have many white friends, but if I were to speak to some white women and I was to explain a situation like potentially I would have with my boyfriend, and it would be clear to me in that conversation that my issue that I was having with my boyfriend was very driven by the fact that he is a black man, and there are things that have been, taken from him, societal struggles he's had to go through and whatever, which will obviously have an effect on how he is in our relationship, and they won't be able to understand that, and they'd be like, why would you put up with that? No. And it's just like, there's so much that's been taken from our men, quote unquote, our men. Yeah, no,
that's true. And that's also why it's really important to, like, if you're seeking advice, seeking help, to choose someone that can relate to you. Totally. And I've spoken about this before on a different podcast, but choosing your therapist, for example, is so pivotal to find someone that you're comfortable with. Some men don't want to talk to women. Some men and women want to talk to someone of the same race, the same faith, because there's certain struggles and there's certain things that we go through as human beings that another culture won't understand, and they might be dismissive of. So there's certain massive things like my mum's trying to force me to marry someone, we'll just leave. Not realising,
cut out your family.
Not realising it's deeper. Like, some women are being shipped off home, and some women are being honour killed, and it's really bad. So it's just being very extremely mindful to where you get your advice from, and if someone's giving you advice that doesn't sit right with you, take it with a pinch of salt, because obviously there's something in their moral compass or their understanding that, or in their world, that doesn't like level out to your world. Totally. And that's okay.
It is sad though that, like, I could make a fleeting comment to my girls and everyone would be like, I hear that. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. But if I said that in, like, the workplace, for example, like, everyone would be like, is everything okay at home? It's crazy. But they have more majority where they can make their comments, environments where they can make their comments, where I'm limited to the environments I can make my comments. Not just me, but people of colour are limited because you're going to be met with, like, instant worry and concern when it's something so calm.
Like, even discipline or certain things, it's just like, what? You got beaten, like, properly, like, belt, what are you talking about? That's social services. There's no such thing as social services when you're younger. Like,
do you watch
and run with it?
Literally. Do you watch couples therapy?
I used to.
Really? The series on BBC? Okay, cool. Me and my boyfriend watched that, and it was so fun. I don't know if you've seen the most recent series, but there was she said she's a Chinese woman, and the guy that she's with is a white guy. And so the therapist is listening to them talk about their problems. And the Chinese woman just has no time for her partner's problems with his mum, because the mum's just been very, like, she don't really chat to him. There's not really that love bond there. And the Chinese woman's literally just like, okay, cool. Yeah, you might have had a bit of problems with your mum, but she didn't hang you off the balcony when you were 6. And the therapist is like,
okay,
sorry,
what do you stop?
Do you know what I mean? It's so funny because you can't have a white therapist for these, because that's just like, it's not good. I'm not advocating that, but it is a bit part and parcel. Do you know what I mean?
In the same breath, everyone's pain and struggle
it's not dismissing that struggle.
It's their own threshold. Like, when my son was born prematurely, and there's babies, he was born at 27 weeks.
Wow.
And when other babies were coming in at 32 weeks and everyone's crying, like, oh my God, my baby's so premature. I'm like, girl, you have no idea, but I can't dismiss their
Of
pain.
course, yeah.
And I have to allow them to grieve, because to them, this is as like bleak as it got. If they knew that it could be worse, maybe they'll be able to, but right now, this is their pain. So it's in a weird way, as much as like, first world struggles, get over it, but if all you've ever experienced is first world struggles,
Yeah, trust me, you're right, exactly.
eventually you'll be like, you know what, I'm blessed, I'm good, stay grounded. But until you get to that point, it's just like, yeah.
Where are you in your birth order in your family? Like, are you eldest,
I'm a third.
middle? Of how many?
4.
Oh, wow, so you're near the end.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
I get older sis vibes from you.
No,
I know you've obviously
a lot
got
of
a-
wisdom.
Okay, fine.
Girl, I'm older, don't worry. So you're gonna be here in a few years' time, don't worry. It's a part and partial of like, I think just part and part of like growth, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because that's very relevant for what we were saying a second ago with the dismissal, because I feel like I talk about with my friend, she's the youngest of her clan and I'm the eldest of, it's just me and my brother, but it's like I'm very older sister in terms of like, what are you doing wrong? Well, how can we improve? You need to get on this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I have been guilty of being dismissing of whatever he's going through, because I'm like, mate, I had that 15 times worse than you. Do you know what I mean?
I think my older sister sometimes says that. She goes like, we had it worse, like get over it kind of thing. But she doesn't mean it in a dismissive way, but it's like, count your blessings, in it.
Yeah, it literally. And my friend was saying though that it can't be like that, because just because I had it worse, it doesn't dismiss the pain of anyone else young, like,
Yeah,
you know.
who had it a
So
little
that
bit
is the
easier.
time where I need to take that in, because that is the one I do the most. 'cause
That's
I'm
all
just
part of growth. Like
no.
sometimes I like empathy, and I'm just like, for God's sake, get over it. But we're flawed.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
human, and it is what it is. So it's 2023, believe it or not. Do you feel like feminism's narrative has gone a bit cray cray? And I use cray cray as a terminology because it's the social media term.
Yeah, I think the one I struggle with the most personally is like the sexual liberation one.
I'm so glad. I've got so much to talk about.
Because, okay, do you want to say your stuff? And then because if it's the same, then there's no point me saying it as well.
No, talk.
Okay,
We'll
fine.
just feel-
So
we'll bounce.
basically, I am all for that, and this is at risk of everyone coming for me and being like, "Oh, you don't
worry,
care
coming
about
for me
women."
first,
Blah,
don't
blah,
worry.
blah, blah. But yeah, and I'm used to it. Come on, but it's like, I don't understand, because I genuinely believe the majority of women, people, men and women, just want love. We just want love, and we really want to have a committed partnership with somebody where you're safe. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing better than that. Like, I understand I'm in a privileged position because I have that, but I can't understand how people wouldn't want that. Do you know what I mean? And that makes me really ignorant, because yeah, you're speaking from your own position and whatever, but I can only speak from my own position. And what I see is that, like, every time when I was younger and I used to go clubbing and all the rest of it, personally, we were all there to get man. That was what we were there for.
Yeah.
To chat to
Get
man
numbers.
or whatever. Yes, exactly. And it would then lead to potentially going out with you or whatever. That was life. So when a person says to me when they're going out just for fun or whatever, it's not true. Yes, there is an element of going out and having fun with your friends. I understand that. And that comes in different forms. But the main majority of men and women, when you're going out to partying, whatever, is to meet the opposite sex or whoever you're into, if you're not heterosexual, to meet somebody and to get it cracking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard for me to get my head around this whole sexual liberation thing with women, where they're like, I want to, sleep with whoever I want to sleep with. Men do it as well. Why can't I do it? And blah, blah, blah. And the reason we can't is because we're fundamentally different. When I say that, I'm not saying that for you not to be able to do what you want to do, but just be honest about what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
Because if after every interaction you're having with a man and you're sleeping with them and you're feeling bad about yourself or not as much happiness or worth or all the rest of it, why don't you take a minute to look at that? Do you know what I mean? Why are you feeling like that?
Yeah.
And why is it now then when you do get the opportunity to be in a relationship, your happy days already there?
Yeah.
It's because that's what you've wanted the whole time. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. And I think a lot of this narrative comes from trauma and pain. And I feel like every single time you expose yourself to another person, another situation, you're building more and more trauma and more resilience to the mindset you're carrying, which is like, I find objectifying, it comes from trauma. And I read some studies about it, and it's just like, there's this thing on social media where now women are overly sexualizing themselves, but they're finding it in a very like liberating way. And I think to an extent we're lying to ourselves when we say that, because it's almost like the narrative of how men perceive women from whether it's porn, whether it's like early days of music videos, the hip hop honeys, the video vixens, you know, women are very sexual and they're sexualized and they're looked in as objects. And, you know, some men sadly treat women in that manner, not all men. And some women have now changed the narrative and go, do you know, I'm going to objectify myself and I'm going to sexualize myself. And
before he does,
but I'm going to monetize on it and I'm going to make myself feel good. But I don't believe that narrative.
Same.
I don't believe that she genuinely feels empowered.
Nope. Because the way I know that you could test that is if she lived in a society where she felt she didn't have to do those things, would she still do them?
No, and I agree. and I think it's just so sad that women are taking ownership over this concept. And I just look at, like, for example, like, I get the idea, like, we should be able to be strong and we should be able to be independent, i.e., you know, if times get tough, we have the abilities to do things for ourselves. We don't have to depend on family. We don't have to depend on a man. If our relationship's broken, we're not feeling like a damsel in distresses. Like, and I think it's important for women to be able to stand on their own feet and to have the right aids and information and knowledge to be able to be strong and to be independent and self-sufficient. But I think that narratives just changed so massively from, you know, be able to be strong to, do you know what? I don't need a man. I'm strong. I'm independent. I got my money. He has to beg for me. You're replaceable and disposable. My body count, deal with it. And it's just like,
that's an interesting thing about body count, you know. So because one thing I was going to say about my mum and how she raised me, the only thing she was strict on, I don't know if you've heard in my episodes of my podcast, was sex. I wasn't allowed to have sex like that. She made that very, very clear. And in doing that, part of the way that she ensured that was the case was by sharing her projected perceptions with me, which was that you're basically going to spoil yourself kind of thing. And if you sleep with a lot of people, you're not going to then be able to get a partner who's going to want you because you're like used damaged goods kind of thing.
That's a very cultural point.
And I'm not going to even dress up like those, like, is quite verbatim for how she said
but
it.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not like, exactly. When I speak to someone like you're going to understand that. But the majority, when I said that closely, when I was young in school, I remember saying to a girl that, like, she was like, are you not close with your mum? My mum took me to go and get on the pill. Are you not close with her? So to her, my mum not taking me to put me on the pill is a class of how close we are.
You ain't tight.
Literally. So, like, I believe and I hope I hope when I have my daughter, I will make sure that I teach her my views with how she should respect her body, but from the perception of she is the queen. She is amazing.
Your body's
you
a
are
temple.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
And you need to protect your energy. It's not a match about like how a man's going to view you. Do you know what I mean?
But
it's very blurry. It's
clouded. A man's world perspective. Like what your mum's inherited is, I can't say the words.
Misogynist.
There we go. I try my best to practice the word. I can't say it, guys. So the M word. It is that pretty much. And it's just like, so what can we say to women to make them feel
to fit into that?
Yeah, it's disgusting. Don't do it. But whereas when you truly understand, when you exchange energies and how that actually damages you, not just mentally, physically, emotionally, that when you finally find that person, after having sex with so many people, especially when you're young and naive and you're trying to understand and grasp that concept of love and what appreciation is, what validation is, what self-esteem is. By the time you find a person, you don't know how to receive love, you don't know how to show love, you don't even know how to understand it, and you start becoming so you have a skewed vision of how love looks like, what respect looks like, and what companionship looks like. And it's just such a shame, because I just see so many women who are pushing this narrative, and it's just like, you have female rappers and it's not just like, oh, look at us, we're empowered. It's a very aggressive form of, like, for example, take WAP, the song. Are we really doing this? Are we really telling girls to do TikTok videos of them dancing to songs like this? And
where the first bar is, there's some whores in this house.
There we go. And it's just like, they think, oh, I'm taking an arrow before a man says it. And I'm going, yeah, and what?
But the women I feel most sorry for in this conversation is the women from backgrounds like ours, because you get the worst of both ends, because you've got that inbuilt shame because you've been told your whole life not to be like that. But then you've also got society which is telling you this is how you can be now. But society isn't telling you that when you go home and you have those voices in your head of what you've been brought up with, society's not there to
they're not going to
make you feel better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I finally did have sex, I was so guilty. I couldn't even look at my mum because I felt like I'd let her down. And I'd actually done nothing wrong. Honestly, I'd actually done nothing wrong. But for what I'd believed and what I thought of myself and the perception I had, which were her perceptions, was so bad. And in that moment, that's why I have a lot of compassion for this conversation and women experiencing this, because I physically remember being in that place where I was like, wow, I feel so shit about myself that I can so see how girls go from here to another man. And another one, because you just want to feel love, and you're so vulnerable that you can be in a place where you can interpret that as love, which it isn't, 100%. Obviously.
And I think I really respect the fact that schools now are teaching what healthy love looks like, because many of us are raised in households where love languages weren't really obvious, or maybe they were in a way that TV programs they don't match what you're seeing on TV. They're not matching what you listen to love songs, and it's just like, so to be able to identify what healthy love is, and that's something I also wanted to talk about, which is basically like the taboos of culture. When it comes to, we're jumping through topics, but we're going to go back to the feminism.
Though, we're flowing, come on.
When it comes to like getting married, so from my perspective, Islamically, we can't have sex before marriage. It happens, we know it happens. I'm not encouraging it, I'm not trying to push the narrative, but what I'm trying to focus on from a marital perspective is that we don't push the narrative of understanding what sex is, understanding what intimacy is, understanding what respect is, what, you know, being able to identify what is consent, what even in a marriage, understanding what is deemed as rape. Because if you're raised in an environment where your mum's telling you, well, you're going to be disgusting if you do this, and a man will do this if you do this, then you start conditioning your brain into thinking, well, maybe this is normal, or maybe this is expected, or maybe this I can tolerate. And then, for example, you have generation after generation talking about FGMs. You know, I think, what was the thing I saw? It's a stat, I want to get it right. The stat is something like, in this day and age, there's over 200 million girls and women alive today that have undergone FGM in countries in Africa, Middle East and Asia. Yeah. You think in 2023 we're not having this conversation still? And I find that so mind-blowing that, you know, women, and women do it for each other. And women are very like, there's one extreme, so you have pussy power, of like, do what you want, this is your body count, blah, blah, blah. Then you have women going, well, no, culturally a woman can't enjoy sex, and before you get married you need to get this done. I say something which I think is quite I don't think is controversial, that I've seen a lot women being the bigger oppressors of women. 100%. Because a man is going to do what you've taught him to do. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to get the idea to oppress you if you haven't presented that, personally, I don't think. And obviously that's difficult and controversial to say, because there's so many women who are like complete victims to so much. I understand that. But if at some point there was a mother, an aunt, someone that a man has watched be treated in a certain way, and then thought, oh, so this is what you do then. Yeah, but in their defence, I agree with you. There are a lot of women who do put down a lot of women, and they oppress them in a certain way, and they don't support them or celebrate them. There's a lot of issues amongst women, but it all stems from what they've had to tolerate and what they've also been conditioned to believe. Yeah. So I remember listening
and a lot of survival as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, in order for you to survive in this culture, you put your head down, you mind your business. And if your husband cheats on you, you keep it separate.
At least he didn't hit you.
Yeah. At least he still provides. Yeah. You know, he's a great man from a great family. So there's so many issues that we're dealing with. And generation after generation, we're letting go of certain things, but certain things are still being inherited, because if you're raised amongst your community, there's always like a couple of aunties that are still pushing that narrative. And as someone like your mum, for example, is trying to detach from certain elements, she'll still listen to certain things and go, oh shoot, maybe I am going a bit too left. Maybe and the self-doubt kicks in. Yeah. So it's such a shame that we live in a time where women are truly trying to find their feet. Yeah, that's exactly what I say. I think the reason we're in this disarray at the moment, where sexual liberation, in my opinion, has got a bit confused, because sexual liberation, from my perspective, should be that everyone understands a woman's body is her own body, the power in energy exchanges when you do have sex, and therefore that should
influence when you do it, and for men and women. And true sexual liberation for women is when men understand what goes on. It's not just on women. So I feel like that's where we need to get to, but en route we're going to the extremes, because we need to experience that, okay, yeah, that didn't work, we need to come back here. And if you do have the understanding already, then you need to, like you say, treat everything with love and empathy and compassion, and not be judgmental about it, because you don't, like I said, I myself felt like I could have gone, you know what I mean, down that road. We all
have a possibility to turn extremely left or extremely right, and none of those are necessarily right. So being hyper harsh on yourself and like not allowing yourself to breathe, exist, have an identity, because you're too scared that you're going to be deemed too strong or too whatever or too independent, versus, you know, letting go crazy and going, well, I'm liberated. It's really hard. But then there are moments where we're going, well, should I just do this, or should I just do that? And there's also
an element, I feel like now, where because so much is allowed, this is again talking to the women from, you know, the cultures like ours, because it's so difficult to maneuver. You go outside, you see the society telling you one thing, and then you come home and you're hearing something completely different. It's like, it's easy to kid yourself by what society's telling you, because their voice is very loud. But like I said, when you get home and you hear those voices and whatever, and then you feel that discomfort and that shame or whatever those feelings are, and you're just like, yeah, block it out, don't want to hear it, go and repeat the action kind of thing.
100%. But do you know why though? Sorry, go on.
It's just because I feel like there's a intolerance to that kind of emotional discomfort, and I think we need to get more ready to embrace that emotional discomfort and work through it. And that's why I hate the term "do the work," because it's like, where do I even start? But you have to do the work.
You have to. 100%.
You know what I mean?
Have to fully understand everything and understand where these stem from, and actually be able to question things rather than just accept things. And I think the social narrative is so much more stronger because it's so much more appealing and more, it's a lot easier. Yeah,
it's easier. That's the word, easier. It would be, so like I was even talking to Kazim about this, because he was saying that it's like he's seeing a lot of women now. We're at the age now where, as my friend and my second series of my podcast put it, we're arriving at 30. And some women have no prospects of a partner. They really want to be in a relationship, they want to have kids, they want to do all these things. And Kazim was saying, he was like, it's just so long for women, like what do they do? Like, do you know what I mean? You're at this
but
point.
I think it's long for women and men, because I think men are also quite confused to where they stand in this day and age. Like when I meet a guy, when I was single and I was talking to these guys, and they're just like, Hebz, you're different. Like women don't think the way you think. Like the women are just too like entitled and I'm like, listen, everyone's entitled in their own ways. Like when I'm entitled, it's because I know what I bring to the table, and I can talk about how I'm going to honor you and how you're going to honor me. But if I'm here going, well, you got all of this, and that's enough for me.
Where's my Birkin?
That's it. Then I get it. And there is a lot of generation women, probably more towards your generation, who this is the narrative. And I feel so bad, because I'm just like, sis, you're really lost right now. And I don't blame them. I never blame women for how it's the role models they look up to. And some people go, well, I don't have role models. You know, like this rapper's not my role model, this Instagram model is not my role model. But you are picking up a lot of things from them. You're following them for a purpose. And I think social media has groomed us in so many ways. I've fallen victim of self-doubt, of like lack of love of myself, and should I just go ahead and do a BBL and do this and do that? Like, you know, what is perfection? Can we thrive towards it?
I do hear that, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but sorry, what did I just drop?
Girl, you just cast some
what is that? My phone. It's on flight mode anyway, it's all good. But I remember being younger in school, all my friends, I was like the weird one, because I was like a virgin for so long, and everyone would try and use that as like oh, you don't get it, you don't have sex, you don't understand. That was like a dismissal of like anything I was ever going through. And it wasn't nice to know that like any kind of, because we were young and guys were even more like all they want to do is, do you know what I mean? And obviously it's clear, if I tell you from the jump, that's not happening with me, because my mum will kill me, so I'm not allowed, but etc, etc. And so instantly your options or guys that are interested in you, whatever, just go from like that to like zero. And it's not nice to feel like you're not the one who's going to get a boyfriend, or you're not the one who's going to have any of these things. I remember feeling that, and I remember the pressure, and it would have been so easy for me to be like, do you know what, I'm just gonna do it so that I can that would be me listening to the society kind of thing. And I hear that it's worse now, because I wouldn't grow up with social media like people nowadays do.
No, because 14-year-olds have their phones in school, and they're like going, oh, have you seen this meme, have you seen this reel, and they're literally, this is their truth.
Exactly. However, that, I do feel like there is a responsibility. This is what I'm saying about the discomfort. Like it was just a given to me. It's not going to feel nice to know that like everyone's going to get a man and you're not going to for now in these like when you're 17, which felt like grown. But it was just accept like that is what it is. Do you know what I mean?
But that's a shout out to your mum and the foundations that she raised within you, right? So you're
able to withstand that.
You felt comfortable enough that even though it was uncomfortable at times, and at times you felt like the odd one out, and at times you're like, well, she'll never find out if I have sex. So like, you know, you've made it like your mum, I guess, communicated
scared me enough.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so interesting because my sister's a little bit older than you. I remember when it came to her going to college and school, she's like, hey, but everyone's got boyfriends, you know? Everyone's got this, everyone's having sex. I'm like, sis, don't worry about it. And instead of me saying, oh, it's disgusting, I said to her, sis, I grew up as mandem. Like, I grew up as one of the boys, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're going to go into relationships, they're going to fall out, they're going to have body counts that they don't want, then it's like all your best friends are no longer best friends and the bitchiness happens. I went, sis, just be cool with everyone.
This is it,
And I said, don't let nothing bother you because what they're doing right now means nothing in a few years'
Trust
time.
me,
So I kept on like re-embedding the value yourself. Don't worry about it. Have everyone as your brother. Like these boys in school who you're really cool with, don't cross the line. Because then in 10 years from now, you guys can still be cool and there's no blurred lines. And it's just like, she's just like, yeah, but I feel left. I'm like, why? I said, just give it like, and I was really mean, but I was like, give it 2 weeks and your girl's going to call you crying.
This is
and
it.
she's going to be like, oh my God, he texted someone else and put X
exactly. And who you become in that state is you are the agony aunt for all your friends because everyone's making up, breaking up, getting pregnant, whatever it might be. And you're the one who's there who has to sit and listen. And then in that time, which is the best place to be as the agony aunt, you learn this is what I don't want. Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
But the thing is, I don't understand why now when there's this, okay, yes, I didn't have social media, but I also didn't have conversations like this to listen to. I didn't have, like, my mum was, but it was more on the scary. Like, we have a relationship now that she's transformed and she's done a lot of that work and whatever, where we have these conversations, but they weren't happening when I was younger. When I was younger and I fancied a boy or I was going out with someone and I told her, the one thing she said to me once was she was like, look, I know you might have your own little urges or whatever, but you need to not do that. Like, that was it. It was end of conversation. It wasn't
what? At least you had that conversation.
Yes, and I'm not ungrateful for that. However, I could have so easily taken that and been like, okay, well, I'm just going to go and do my thing. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't
and many women, many girls did.
Exactly.
Like in my culture, like not even faith, because faith there's no shame in talking, there's no taboo talking about sex, especially when you're trying to like educate people and empower people to understand what it's about, and you know how you're going to be prepared for marriage, how you're going to be able to conceive when you don't know the basics. But my parents didn't even talk about it. So it was like a taboo, an unspoken elephant in the room, but we just knew my brother was allowed to date and women cannot. Islamically, for the record, it doesn't matter if you're a girl and boy. What you do that's sinning applies both ways. But unfortunately we live in a time and age where
it's
like
been interpreted to benefit certain groups. And
but that's a pure culture thing.
I know.
There's no interpretation where it goes like not a single hadith or quote in the Quran that says actually men can, you know, no. And it's just like, it just shows you what culture does to shape women. And to an extent, I'm grateful for my upbringing, and I'm grateful, like, I know how I'm going to raise my children. It'll be different than how I was raised. I'll make sure my children understand what sex is and they understand everything about their body. But I will try my best for faith reasons to hold them off from doing as much as they can, and sort of use the narrative I use with my sister, which is, you know, just be cool with people. Learn people. You're still discovering yourself.
And I think that's more than possible. I really do. Because I know
100%.
people who did have a bit more of that closer, at the time, relationship with their parents or sisters or whatever, who were able to sail through without doing those things that later would have an impact on them, and they were good as, and then they managed to, you know, get in a relationship with someone that they really wanted to eventually, and they were good. They don't have the trauma, they don't have the shame, they don't have any of those things, because they had that. I think all it needs is that safe conversation.
That's it. And I think when you have that conversation and you don't feel it's being forceful and it's not being controlling or oppressing, or just making you feel a bit like crap about yourself, then there is something. I mean, kids will be kids, teenagers will be teenagers. you can say something and 2 minutes later they're chatting to their friends, and now so slowly they're undoing everything. And that's my biggest worry.
I know, you said on the podcast that I listened to about you, and you were saying about your son as a young black man, which he will be eventually, as much as you put into him, he's going to be outside, and
that's
you can't control.
As much as I've shaped him to be this really emotionally intelligent boy, and he's an incredible soul, and there's so much wisdom in him for an 8-year-old. I'm just like, I don't understand you, like, but then I'm also grateful that he's, you know, develops in this way. But just as easy as he's developed like this, it's so easy for him to then be conditioned by society outside. And
but at least you're aware of that. I don't think our parents were ever aware. They thought everything that is happening in the home was going to happen outside, and then we're good. So we don't need to give them skills. We don't need to, because and I see that a lot as well.
And my son's like, Mum, can I have a phone? But let me just finish my sentence, Mum. Can I have a phone? But like, I just
here's the case.
Literally. And I'm just like, Khalil, you know the answer. He's like, okay, what about when I turn 10?
Oh,
I said, when you turn 10, I'll think about it. Like, no. And then he's just like, but what if I'm just able to text my friends and text you lovely messages? And I'm like, he's like, can I have TikTok for me to see? And after I discovered TikTok recently on the dark side, on a very personal level for me, I was just like, do you know what?
With the racism from...
Everything. Racism, telling me that my dad killed himself out of shame, insults towards my son, towards like just everything. Me as a woman, like I'm like left over to society because I've been divorced, the stigma behind divorce.
But how can they say that when you're fully married again?
Not just that, but because they make their own assumptions. And a lot of these comments are from men.
Yeah, of course.
Men. And particularly a certain race, I will not say, because I will not be written off. But just go on my page on TikTok, run my Hebz, and just go through the comments and you'll know. And it's just like, I can't let you go on social media, Khalil.
No,
I love you so much, and I get it. There's such innocent things out there, but you will not be exposed. And the other day, he's like, Mummy, when I go to Daddy's house, can I subscribe to your podcast? I'm like, no.
Definitely
Firstly, your pops can't be watching this podcast. Secondly, you don't have to. You can't be listening to these conversations. And it's just like, kids are growing up so quick, which is why the whole sexualizing. Do you see Balenciaga campaign
with
happened?
the kids, something with the kids,
and it's just like, basically they were holding teddy bears that represented like pedophilic stuff, basically. And it's just like, how much are we really testing this narrative of what can we do to sexualize everything? I have a question for you,
please.
Can a woman... Okay, so you're feeling good about yourself, right?
Why? You about to change that?
No, I'm saying. So I'm setting a scene, setting scene for you. So you feel good about yourself, feeling sexy.
That's it.
You take a good picture of yourself, and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling good. And you're wearing very little clothes, but you're putting something on there because you're feeling good about yourself. Right. And now you post it on social media, and then you're getting people now sexualizing you. How do you feel about that? Or how would you receive that?
The thing is, it's to be expected. I know it's wrong, and I'm upset that we live in that society, but that's why I'm very, very premeditative about what I post and when I post it, and it's part of the reason that I actually made my exit from PT, was because it got to a point where with PT, you are, like, my journey in PT was very, I won't say it's unique, but it gave me a very quick front row seat to how it can get. And I was in a chain, a gym chain, and it was like a up there health club rather than a gym, and I was in a very masculine environment, and the guy told me, you're hired because you're a cute, pretty girl, and we need a new one on the team. And there was multiple times where he would say things like, yeah, you know, if I just care about the money. So if she's there in a sports bra with her hair straightened and handing out towels, and you're there looking like that, who's going to get the client? Like, that was very common, and just normally, you know, and it was at the time where I started when I was like 18. So it was a good few years ago, almost 10 years ago. And at that time, women weren't in the gym how they are now. Do you know what I mean? So this whole conversation, like you're saying, about women being sexualized, especially in the fitness arena, I've seen that. I've watched that whole evolution, as I'm sure you have. And I do feel like it is very hard, because I don't want to say, I'm glad that there's clothes that we can wear now which are for us, as opposed to just there being like, you know, the uniform of like tracksuit and a top. Now there's a bit more variety, of course, but it's upsetting that there's actual shorts made to squeeze at your bum and make your bum more appealing and whatever, and that is what like flies off the shelves kind of thing, because you're just reiterating the same thing of that you're there as an object. And I remember the clear memory I have of the switch happening was when I was in that gym working, and a guy came over, I remember, and he was like, sorry to interrupt the conversation, because I was chatting to like other PTs, and he was like, sorry to interrupt the conversations, but have you seen her? Have you seen the bum on that? Like about another girl who was training, and she was wearing like the tightest thing, the tightest lycra you can imagine. This was before the days of like Gymshark and all these other things. It was like quite revolutionary that she was doing that. And he was just like, I'm not being funny, mate, but someone's gonna have an accident over there, like, because they're all man working out and watching her.
I've had that, and go on.
And so it's just like it's hard, because I got to the point with PT where I was like, I know unless I'm willing to make these very sexualizing reels of myself, I'm just not going to be considered
as successful as you can be.
Considered as successful and considered as serious. And I'm a very good PT. I do it all for women. That's the purpose of not just like aesthetic, whatever. This is literally to help their lives improve when they have kids and when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
So how am I putting my worth as a PT or my professionalism in the hands of how sexual I can make this video?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was part of my reason. That's why I take my hat off to like Shaz, who you had on as well.
Yeah.
And I know her like outside of your podcast.
Wicked.
And she doesn't do that. Like she doesn't go down that road. She's very clear.
But she's had her own growth.
Absolutely.
And I think we've all fallen short of that. So my gym pics, if you go on my highlights, I ain't removed them. Like
I remember, you used to bang gym and your crop top and your
booty, like pow. And I used to have guys go like make very loud acknowledgements of my presence. And it's just like, to an extent, we all want to feel validated. We all want to feel appreciated. We all want to feel like
and
good
there's
about
nothing
ourselves.
wrong with that.
But it's just being able to understand and recondition your brain is this really the type of attention I really want?
Yeah.
And do I really want to keep getting those reactions? And it's just like...
And am I going to confuse that for meaningful care or interest in me? And that is easy to do. And that's what I'm saying about ease. It's very easy. I always say, like, I could very easily get a lot of attention. It's not hard. Any woman can. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Just have to remove one item, just unzip a little bit lower, and that's it. But it's about knowing that I don't want that kind of attention, because I'd rather, obviously I'm in a relationship anyway, so it's irrelevant, but if I wasn't, it would be to get something more meaningful.
That's it.
I don't want to give the perception to a guy straight away that that's what I'm on.
But I think some women, because they're so...
They don't know there's any other option,
because they feel lonely, and because of how hard it is to get into relationships these days, because of the bars that we've set as women. Some women are just so strong and so fierce and so whatever, that they don't know how to channel feminine energy, that they feel like the best thing I can do is I can take ownership and I can flaunt my body, and I'll get attention for now, and that's enough to keep them running.
And it's short-term
like
gratification,
literally. But then that short-term turns to long-term, and then it's just like, wait, why am I still single?
Trust me.
And it's just like, we both have ownership. Men and women have ownership over how we look and how we receive people and how we react to people. So men need to lower their gaze, as women need to like be mindful of how they dress. And it took me a very long time to detach from the concept of how I dress, and still I get called not Muslim enough because my arms are out, or my neck's showing. And it's just like, well, if you knew my journey, you'll know that it's taken me a lot to be able to let go of my vanity and to let go of certain ego things that make me feel good about myself, because like when I cover, no one can see my figure. And it's just like, and that to me made me feel good about myself.
But this is a thing that I have as well, because sorry, we running out of time?
No, girl, I got O2 letting me know that there's an event happening a little bit later on.
Oh, okay. So for me, I know for a fact that part of the reason I'm able to bust out the house with my Crocs on, hair mad, no makeup, nothing, and feel no way, is because I know I've got the man of my dreams in my house waiting to like love me regardless. And that's what makes me so confident from the inside and out. And I'm not putting that all like my confidence comes from him. Absolutely not.
No, but there's some comfort in that.
Absolutely. And I know that that's a privilege, because a lot of women aren't in that position where they have got that relationship. So they do need to work for the likes, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? But
then who are they attracting? What kind of energy?
And this is why it's a circle, because if you were to stop putting as much effort in the way of getting that attention, and you still were getting attention, but I think so many women are scared that they lose all attention if you stop doing that. And again, that is just reinforced by when you look on social media and you see that nobody is checking for you unless you've got a BBL or you've got fake this or fake that.
But then that's the thing, that's another thing. It's like women are talking about how like this, some women are talking about how like they're so independent, they're so this, they don't need a man, but they're also doing a BBL in the same breath. and also trying to look good for a man and trying to change and what a woman should look like to be attractive. And it's like, you're not just doing it for yourself, sis. You're not putting yourself through so much pain just because you can look in the mirror and go, like, for me, empowerment is about self-love, but not to put it all out on display to validate the self-love. You can do what you want, dress how you want. That's your own prerogative, and I'm never going to tell anyone how to dress. But for me, when it comes to empowerment and feeling good about myself, it's about my mental well-being, my emotional well-being, and celebrating women and lifting up each other. But also, I don't feel that I need to be and behave in a certain manner to feel strong about myself and to feel good about myself. And I think it just saddens me that social media is having a massive mental effect on women, like their mental health's being compromised. And like, there's eating disorders, there's severe depression, there's self-harming, there's this severe anxiety of how many likes you can get. The younger generation are like dying over likes, like literally doing surgery, doing whatever just to feel validated. Something's gone wrong along the lines of the concept of womanhood and feminism.
Yeah, but again, I put that down to the fact that again, just like we've recently arrived at this time where women are allowed to, you know, have a bit more independence than we have ever in history before, I think. Social media is new. We are the guinea pigs. We are the first testers of it. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to go mad before we come back down to be like, okay, it's like anything. You get addicted, you lose your... I don't see a way forward without that. I think even now with these kind of conversations, and I got Instagram when I was 19, and it was like a picture of my food. Do you know that meme I put up the other day when it was like, it's 2012, you put a picture up, it's got 1 like, and you don't care. That's what it was. And then it's now been how many years, and people are now realizing, oh, okay, yeah, some people are dying over likes. So people are starting to retract. More people are moving out to like the mountains or the forest with no service. There's more retreats. There's more conversation around that. I do feel like we are moving in that direction where people are going to go back to limiting it a lot and having... People already have like timers of they delete the apps off their phone, and do you know what I mean?
But because it won't help social media platforms. So they've done the thing of like, oh, let's hide the likes if you want to hide the numbers. But because people monetize, like social media, all these different social platforms monetize from your mental compromise. They monetize on you being sexualized, harassed, like they monetize on fights that are being uploaded on social media. They can control it all. But if they control it all, we're losing followers, we're losing money, we're losing sponsors. So it's just like, I just feel like this narrative is going to get way worse before, like, for example, I feel like the value of companionship and marriage and, you know, being in a, you know, one-on-one relationship, but long term, it's almost like dying.
My friend says to me as well, but I do feel like it is a phase. Like we're going through, we're the guinea pigs. Like we are seeing this out. It's going to get a lot of... I'm seeing a drastic change in a lot of my friends, by the way, from like 3 years ago. Okay. 3 years ago, it was, I can do my thing. I don't care. No man
Humble
check for
pie.
me, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, yeah, I might be seeing him even though he doesn't drive a range.
However, have they had to compromise on their value and their worth to then go, well, maybe this is as good as I'm going to get because I've allowed a lot of time pass, and then they compromise and settle for someone who doesn't really truly like allow them to grow and appreciate them and shape them well. And it's just like a case of, we'll just take what we got right at this point.
I don't think it was I don't think it's compromised because I don't think the list they had at the beginning was realistic. Okay. I think the list they had at the beginning was inspired by this new wave of WAP and City Girls and all that. And now they're realising, actually, that's not really keeping me warm at night. Do you know what I mean? So maybe I can do without the 4 ranges and him owning his own house in London and him this and
having
him
a
that.
Cottage elsewhere.
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't think that's compromising. Again, I think it's forcing women to look more to themselves and be like, what about me? I need to be... I think the best time relationships are going to thrive is when men and women understand that on my own I'm comfy. And I don't mean that just like emotionally, that's important too, but I mean financially. When women know alone I can do this, then having a man in your life is just on top of. It's
a
an
beautiful
extra
extension to it.
exactly. And for the men as well. So I feel we don't talk enough about the men who are living off women. There are a lot of men I know who are doing not even a drop compared to what their woman is. She's studying, going out to work, renting her own place on her own or whatever, and he's just staying there drinking off her milk.
Can I say, if it financially makes sense and you've come to an agreement to do that, cool, do that. But if a man has no aspiration to be, I find it so unattractive.
Yeah, 100%.
I find it so unattractive.
And I think the majority of women don't need, or especially when they go through, like, have understanding and they've been in a relationship or two and they're like, all right, cool, I need to relax my high expectations and unrealistic views. They don't want a man who's doing that much. They just want someone to be on their level.
Yeah.
And that is not too much to ask. And I'll never tell any of my friends to compromise on that, because you need someone at your own level, definitely. It doesn't have to be financially, but ambition
you need someone that's
mind
mentally stimulating.
Exactly.
You need someone to want to help you push yourself, whether it's, like, see, the thing is, I always say, like, if we strip it down to, not everyone wants to go to traditional roles, right? And that's fine. But if you strip it down to how men and women serve each other, because there's certain things, we both carry masculine and feminine energy.
Yep.
But sadly, a lot of women carry the wounded versions of those, and it comes in a different way. But if you think about truly what a man can serve for a woman and a woman can serve for a man, there's nothing wrong with accepting, do you know what, like, my man needs to set himself in this lane, and I don't have to be in competition with my partner or my man. I don't have to go have one up on him. Well, I earn more than you. Well, you're not really a man. Like, if you're carrying that mindset, then it is very unattractive for a man, and it's very unattractive for a woman to be with a man who goes, well, if you want to invest, because that's the issue though. Marriage is also lost because men don't know how to deal with this new version of a woman, and this woman's so strong in a threatening manner. So my strength isn't threatening, and I overstress it. Like, I'm very happily be submissive to a man when need be, and he'll be submissive to me in a different manner.
Like Shaz says, find me a man who I should be submissive
I will submit. Like, precisely. But then there's no shame behind it. The same way a man has no issue in lowering his ego and pride when it comes to his woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a way you balance each other out. And I think if people strip it back down to just the basic purpose of each other, and understand, like, obviously we're in a day and age where a woman can work as well as alongside a man, and we actually live in a society where a man can't always be as a main provider. Just accepting those rules rather than go, well, that doesn't make her a woman enough, that doesn't make her man enough. But sadly, a lot of men don't know how to handle women.
100%.
So they don't know how to settle down with women. They don't know how to have and I think we just live in a very dangerous period where people just don't know how to navigate through life.
And this is something controversial again, obviously. Again, that conversation I was having with Kazim about him saying it's really hard for women at the moment, like, what do they do, kind of thing, if they want to try and find a man. And we were saying, like, if we were to break up, starting again with someone, oh mate, I can't even imagine, like, the conversations, the family, getting each other's like, it's just so long, the whole thing. Anyway, at the same time, women, I remember when I got with him when I was about 21, 22, and a lot of women in my life who'd been previously scorned by men or weren't happy with men at that time had no problem sharing their views with me about how, like, I shouldn't really put all my eggs in one basket. I'm quite young. You don't want to give this guy your 20s unless you really know him like that. Do you really know him? Like, is it going to be a waste of your time? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it would have been so, especially in the first years of a relationship, when you're laying down those foundations, you are learning each other's language. It's hard.
There's a lot of growth.
I cried a lot. Do you know, it's me. Like, it was hard. You're just learning. It's like having a mirror that you haven't had to look into, and it's really hard. It would have been so easy for both of us at that point to walk away and just live our lives. Do you know what I mean? I could have been out with, like, going on bare dates with different men. He could be, do you know what I mean? But we didn't do that. And it's like a lot of women now who are single and turning to me as we're arriving at 30, and they're like, oh, I just want to find what you guys have, or I just want this and I just want that. And I'm just like, yeah, because you were one of the people telling me at the time, walk away, live your life, you're only young, blah, blah, blah. So I do think there's people always take the piss out of people such as myself who plan things out. Yes, you can't have a plan for life, but you can have aims.
You can attempt.
You can have a
little
blueprint.
Sprints and goals.
Trust me. And, like, there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong if you failed as well. At least you attempted to, rather than
totally.
And I get it, like, some people like having different eggs in different basket. When I left my ex-husband, I was that mindset. I was like, I just invested 11 years of my life. I'm not about to jump into something. But then it comes a point where that's very unhealthy, and you go, do you know what, I need to invest in something and take a risk,
And
take
it's
a chance.
scarier, yeah.
But the issue now, the society, we're running out of time, by the way,
I could be here 4 hours.
but is that they don't even get to the part of meeting family. They don't even get to the part of having these conversations, because it's so superficial and it's so like surface level, that even though, let's face it, like you said, we're all yearning for it. We're all yearning to be loved, but no one wants to be vulnerable because it makes us look weak.
Yeah.
I can't show him that I have insecurities. I can't show her that actually, do you know what? I worry about her opinion. So instead, I'm going to act like I'm too nice. I'm going to act like, I'm not going to call you back. Listen, I'll call you back in a heartbeat.
Trust me.
I will
I'll
text
blow up
you.
your phone.
I don't do the whole like, sis, wait like 20 minutes in. I will reply straight back. Emojis, the works. I don't care. And it's just like, it's such a shame, because I think people are putting so much pressure on themselves. And if we really just truly respect the concept of what you truly are thriving for and what your part of your purpose and your growth, a lot of social media stuff will become so irrelevant. Because when you're in a relationship, all these things kind of, you become almost like immune to it.
Totally.
There are different things you're worried about.
Yeah.
And there are things that are opened up, like a brand new window of concerns.
Of insecurities.
But it's not the same as what people who haven't even began to build a connection with.
1000%.
And it makes me really sad. I need to bring you back on again, because we haven't finished speaking.
Definitely. I'm up for that. Yeah.
I don't think I've offended too many people, and if I have offended you,
We're just getting started though. Don't watch that.
Let me apologize for like, I'm not here to apologize. I'm not here to offend anyone. I'm not here to bring anyone down. Everyone's going through a struggle. Everyone's like, life is really life, and I have to just accept it, and we all have to accept it. And rather than bury our heads in it, I think it's so important to just make peace with what we're going through and actually address it, rather than cover it with people and company and exchanging energies with people that's only going to damage you more and more, or putting yourself out there for like short-term validation. Like, it's important to understand our self-worth, and you definitely won't get it from social media. Like, memes are nice, quotes are nice, but sometimes the person who wrote it is complete inexperienced in life. So take everything with a pinch of salt. Any final words?
Listen to my podcast.
God, that's the next plug, man.
Oh, okay, fine. I don't even need to do that now.
Any final words?
Any final words? I would say that, just to echo what you said, really, about being honest about what you really want. I think the best way to start of being honest about what you want is when you picture the ideal life for yourself. What does that look like? And if your life right now that you're living is very, very far from that, then that's a good way of knowing, like, okay, there's a few things I need to change here. And there's always going to be things you need to change, and they're done quite easily. And then there's things you need to change that are done with a lot of difficulty. And unfortunately, it's a lot of difficulty ones that are going to get you closer to that ideal life. So it's not Instagram, it's not getting surgery, it's not going out with a next man. It's probably the stuff that's like dealing with the deep trauma you have that stops you from being able to open up, or whatever it might be. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
No, but it's true. You have to you need to be able to be vulnerable and take a very harsh look in the mirror, and be able to strip back everything and face your demons, because we're all going through it. Maya, thank you so much for coming.
Absolute pleasure. It feels like I've been here 10 minutes. I could do 2 more hours.
Yeah, we can do this 100%.
Easily.
I'm sorry, I know the studio's a distance, but we still got to make it work.
Yeah, 1000%. I'm on it.
For those who don't know what it is you do, your podcast, and just your general day-to-day, let them know where they can find you and any projects you're working on and what to expect.
So Maya's Minutes Podcast. So it's at Maya's Minutes Podcast on Instagram. And Maya's Minutes is a audio podcast. I'm not on levels like you yet. I love your production.
Small visuals.
Small visuals on reels, I know, but I'm not. I want to be like you, like your words light up.
You got Aladdin in the building.
Captions light up. I love that. I need to ask you about that after. Anyway,
okay.
Audio podcast, and it's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. And then my personal Instagram is at Maya Saffronhan, but you'll see that from the Maya's Minutes podcast Instagram as well. But any listens and reshares and conversation feedback and all of that is very, very highly appreciated. It's similar conversations to what we're having today.
But yours very themed. I like it.
Yeah, every series has a different topic, and we go deeper and deeper.
I respect it.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you
so much.
Thank you as well.
Guys, you have been listening and watching Growing Up British. My name is Hebz. You can catch me on Instagram on I am Hebz with a Z, growingupbritish.h on also on Instagram, and Mama Hebz on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple mute Apple Podcasts.
Podcast. I know, I always do that
Darn
as well.
Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Please like, subscribe, spread the word, and I appreciate you guys.
Grownish, smartish, British.
We are British, apparently.